False Start, a college football podcast for everyone and everyone else. I'm your host, John Buhler, lead writer for FanSided. As you can see, I am once again flying solo like a cub. Cody Williams is still making his way back from a wedding or whatnot. He'll be on the show Thursday. I'm recording to you guys semi-live here on Sunday evening. This is going to go up on Monday. So hopefully nothing I say here doesn't ages poorly, but it is potentially on the horizon here as well. Make sure I got this absolutely right because this looks insane right now. So um, maybe have some breaking news right when I come on to the show. God, this is it. So, let's get going here with our first and 15 today with some he gone. We had three head coaches get fired today. First head coach out was Trent Bray, the Oregon State head coach, former interim, taking over for Jonathan Smith at his alma mater. He is out in Corvallis after an 0-7 start. Not long after that, the big bombshell of the day was James Franklin was let go after a 3-3 start and an 0-3 start to conference play there in the Big Ten. If you losing to Oregon's one thing, but losing to UCLA, Northwestern back to back to back, yeah, that's a challenge. And then Trent Dilfer is now out at UAB. So again, when I focus on who has been out and stuff within the realm of college football for the most part, I mostly deal with guys that are, in the competing at the Power Four level. Those are high profile jobs. Those are positions where, for lack of a better word, there's a greater level of accountability. Like when you're winning and losing at the group of five, you want to praise the guys who are winning and not necessarily beat up on those who are losing. But obviously things were going very south very quickly there for Bray and Dilfer. It's kind of amazing that it took this long for Dilfer and really how quickly it went south there for Bray. I'll touch on those two real quick, and then I'll touch on Franklin, and then possibly who could be coming next. So with Bray, you replaced Jonathan Smith, who had brought Oregon State back to a level it hadn't experienced since he played quarterback for them in the late 90s, early 2000s with Chad Ochocinco Johnson and TJ Houshmandzadeh as his quarterback. I knew I was going to mess that up saying that. I never do, but I did now because this is a false start. With Oregon State, like losing its accreditation as a Power 5 team with the Pac-12 dissolving and then being put back together. The Oregon State Beavers have really, really, really struggled. I think the fact that Oregon's been pretty good on the other side of the coin doesn't help them either. And then I also think Washington State, even when they've kind of lost their stuff, kind of competing as like a Mountain West adjacent program, the Cougs have played pretty well. Nearly beat Ole Miss this past week. But again, I think like even getting Malik Murphy to transfer in from Duke, it doesn't matter. They're the first team to start the season at 0-7, and I'll touch on that here at the end of the show with pouring out and Bowlin, because we're bringing that back now. As far as Dilfer is concerned, Cody has been more anti-Trent Dilfer than me. Look, UAB is a hard job. Just because it's in Alabama, just because it's in the state capital of Birmingham, doesn't mean it's an easy job. I mean, you look at the other programs in the state, Alabama and Auburn, Power 5. And then you've also got Troy, you've got South Alabama. I feel like I'm missing another one here too, but Troy and South are doing much better than UAB. And I think with Dilfer, I mean, yes, you want a quarterback, won a Super Bowl as a quarterback for the Ravens in 2000, was a Pro Bowler for the Buccaneers before then. For a guy that basically got a Super Bowl ring on the back of an all-time great defense, he just doesn't carry on that side of the ball. It just kind of goes to show that some of these, celebrity hires at head coach, you hope it's going to be Deion Sanders like it was last year, but in a lot of instances, it might be closer to Bill Belichick. Now let's touch on James Franklin because this is absolutely wild. Like 2 weeks ago, we had him on the set of College Game Day, with Penn State hosting Oregon, two undefeated teams. And this is kind of untrodden territory in a lot of ways with how quickly it fell out of favor fast there in Happy Valley. But I think this comes down to what has become the phrase of it all, the James Franklin of it all. This is a guy who was known as the driver going 10-2 So just keeping his hands on the wheels, going 10-2 every season, beating all the teams he should, beating none of the teams he can't. Never a top five team. But then, it just seems though you had to replace, Tom Allen at defensive coordinator, bring in Jim Knowles. That didn't work out. Andy Koltnecki hasn't really prospered as an offensive play caller there. Drew Aller, who's played his last game there with Penn State, out of eligibility, broke his ankle there in the final minutes there versus Northwestern. Went from a potential first round grade to a guy that might be a seventh round pick, to be honest with you. Like what happened to Quinn Ewers could definitely happen to Drew Aller here. And I think there's really like this has been kind of percolating through my brain here for a while. Give a shout out to my fansided.com and fansided NCAA division staff for keeping the wheels on the track here with these terminations and everything like that. But here's really what it comes down to with Penn State. James Franklin just didn't do a whole hell of a lot. He did what was expected of him and nothing more. And I think when you're a program that's expecting more than that, you're going to be left disappointed. Everybody's saying like, oh, he won 2 playoff games last year. You beat SMU at home and you beat Boise State in the Fiesta Bowl. Like, whoop-de-doo, Basil, who cares? Neither of those teams are sniffing the playoff this year. Kind of felt like it was a flash in the pan in some ways, with SMU getting a very favorable ACC schedule and with Boise State, I don't know, having Ashton Jeanty at running back. And I feel like Penn State looks at itself and you wonder, like, why can't we be Oregon? Why can't we ever be at Ohio State? And then I think Kurt Cignetti there at Indiana is changing the entire game. This is the guy that's come in to a program where the ceiling was going to a bowl game. Well, he takes the Hoosiers to the playoff in year one and has them ranked number 3 in the country with an impressive road win on the season at Oregon. That's probably the best win in program history. And then you have Fernando Mendoza, possible Heisman frontrunner, basically hurt Dante Moore's Heisman candidacy there in week 7. That's kind of the new standard. And I think a lot of athletic directors out there say, like, if Indiana can do it, why can't we? And I think, truth be told, like, not everybody's going to invest the amount of resources into a program like Indiana is, or, has a head coach quite like Kurt Cignetti, but Penn State should do this. And I look at this, like, and I'll be writing this here for a Badger of Honor, probably on Tuesday when I'm back at work for sure. My Big Ten power rankings, Penn State 15th in the Big Ten. This is a team that I had second or third 3 weeks ago. I think the only teams in the Big Ten that are definitively worse than them are Wisconsin, Purdue, and Rutgers. I mean, Michigan State at least beat a Power 4 team. Granted, that's Boston College and their ass, but like, it's unbelievable. And I knew we were going to start the show off here. Like, I put Hegon and everything down like this further down the outline, but I'm like, no, this is what's going to happen now. And I know I'm kind of all over the place. I'm still really tired from last night. Podcasting less than 24 hours from when I did it before. But Penn State's going to be able to get some good coaches. And I think the fact that, like, they're wanting to get out ahead of this, knowing that Franklin's not the guy for them anymore, this leads me to believe that they'll be able to get the best candidate out there of anybody. And I think right now the first 3 names that people are mentioning are one of their own and Matt Rule of Nebraska, Iowa State head coach Matt Campbell, and Kurt Cignetti there at Indiana. Would Coach Sig leave Bloomington? Potentially. I think that, like, he is over on the wrong side of 60. That doesn't help his case. Matt Campbell and Matt Rule are considerably younger. So, you're hoping you have a decade-long run like you had with James Franklin, but with greater success. You don't want it to be a 2-year thing like you had with Bill O'Brien, because you're right back into this. And how do you really build on that? And I think also with Cignetti, like, he can be a legend. Like, they'll build a statue for him in Bloomington. Like, he'll be as revered, if not more, than Bob Knight. Possibly more. The times have changed. Indiana's now a football school. Matt Rule, I think, would go because this is alma mater, and he doesn't stick anywhere for very long. Nebraska's going to have a very good season. But again, I think in the modern era of college football, Penn State just has better resources. They've got a better recruiting pool. I think it works out for them a little bit more. I think you can win a national title at Penn State. I think he can make the playoff maybe at Nebraska. That's the difference there. And then Matt Campbell, I kind of wonder if he's kind of hit his ceiling there at Iowa State. This is a team that's lost back-to-back games now. You lost last week to Cincinnati. You lose this week to Colorado. And again, the Big 12 is ultra competitive, and you've brought Iowa State to a level that most people weren't expecting. But right now, I don't know if they're ever going to win the Big 12. I think that that's the ceiling for them. Make the playoff, win the Big 12, maybe win a game. But Texas Tech's leveled up. Utah's looking pretty good. Arizona State might have two losses. I still think that's a high quality team. Cincinnati only has one, two Nebraska. And I think Matt Campbell would fit the ethos very, very, very well at Penn State. But again, they had to pay a bunch of money to get Franklin gone. They needed to do it. And I'm kind of glad that they did. I'm kind of shocked at the timing of it all. And as far as who's next up to be fired, because again, Dilfer dropped like literally when I recorded. Shout out to Nick Rome there and the NCAA division Slack channel with covering Saturday Blitz. He's like, Trent Dilfer is gone. And he covers like the sport as a whole. So that's a big deal for him. Your next head coach is to be gone. And again, I'm not going to put anybody on blast in the group of five just because I don't know. I do care, but I don't want to be mean. Luke Fickle, how do you still have a job? He might be gone before this even goes live, to be honest with you. And we'll touch on that on Thursday if it does happen. You lose 37-0 at home to Iowa. Embarrassing. You're not winning another effing game. Enough's been said about him. Billy Napier's 2-4 at Florida. Depending on how you look versus Mississippi State, maybe you get fired before you go to the cocktail party and face Georgia. I think that they kind of go with him for the season or for a while. But again, you've seen so many Power Four coaches be out. Franklin has joined the likes of Brent Pry, Deshaun Foster, Mike Gundy. I'm missing somebody else here too. I'm certain of that. It's unbelievable, really. And then just because like you've gotten to that point where these coaches can be asked to leave. We're not even at Halloween yet, man. It's so odd. Napier is possible too after Fickle. I would say Hugh Freeze is feeling a lot of heat there too at Auburn. Again, similar thing. You go 0 and you go 3-0 in the non-conference, then you get to conference play, you lose three games in a row to Oklahoma, to Texas A&M, to Georgia, all top 10 teams effectively. But like I did notice this with last night's game. I didn't mention it on the show because I was too tired. Just he freezes body language going to halftime. Like he looked like he was about to cry. And I mean, like the world we're living in, it makes it tough, and we do that. We do that from time to time. We just get overwhelmed. Like to be only up by 7, where everything went your way for 28 minutes, and the Georgia is able to steal, effectively do a 10-point swing on you. How can you possibly inspire like hope in the second half? And Auburn may need to go another direction. I think Mark Stoops is definitely feeling some heat there in Kentucky, and I think Bill O'Brien most certainly is in Boston College. Stoops, we'll see. The job's gotten harder. I think people understand that, but like he's been there for a while. It's not getting better. And then Bill O'Brien in year two, I mean, they've lost 5 games in a row. Boston College might be the worst team in the ACC. That includes Stanford. And also Wake's like a brand new team. Devon Claiborne's really good. I think Jake Dickert's a fantastic head coach, but like Bill O'Brien like was the head coach of the Texans. He won division titles for Christ's sake. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about that. Maybe by the time this comes up, goes live, maybe Fickle's gone. But I think it might be in a couple weeks. If you're going to take that beating at Ohio State, then you're going to take a beating to Oregon, and then you're going to go to the bye, and then before you get beat by Washington like a drum, maybe that'll happen. But again, like there was nothing defensible about Fickle on Saturday night covering that game. It was utterly atrocious. And I almost felt bad for James Franklin, but he's made a lot of money to be very mediocre for a very long time. This is a false start. So now that that's out of the way, let's move on to what was originally going to be our first and 15. But here's our second topic of the day with Stephen B. Swift's second take. My thoughts on the latest AP Top 25 poll. So here's how we're going to go. We're going to go through this. I'm gonna read them off 1 through 25, break them down in quintiles. So number 1 is Ohio State. Number 2, Miami. Number 3, Indiana. Number 4, Texas A&M. Number 5, Ole Miss. Number 6, Alabama. Number 7, Texas Tech. Number 8, Oregon. Number 9, Georgia. Number 10, LSU. Number 11, Tennessee. Number 12, Georgia Tech. Number 13, Notre Dame. Number 14, Oklahoma. Number 15, BYU. 16 through 20, number 16, Missouri. 17, Vanderbilt. 18, Virginia Tech. 19, South Florida. 20, USC. And then rounding out the top 25, 21, Texas. 22, Memphis. 23, Utah. 24, Cincinnati. 25, Nebraska. So I'm looking, okay, let's go to the top five. I feel like those are the right five teams. I think the top three for sure, maybe not in that order, but like those are the right top three teams with Ohio State, Miami, and Indiana. I like Miami a little bit more than Ohio State, and I'll reflect on that here in the next topic here. Very happy to see Indiana at three. This team is immensely talented. I don't know if they have necessarily the 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 pedigree, with the 4 stars and 5 stars to really compete with Ohio State and Miami in a national title bout, but they could get there. Very impressed with Texas A&M. Covered them last night with their multi-score win over Florida. Mike Elko's got that thing figured out. I knew that, like, it hit the fan when he left for Duke, and it's gotten so much better with him back there. I think the best part is for A&M, this is the kind of game that the Aggies would always lose. And, whether that would be under Jimbo Fisher or Kevin Sumlin or really anybody before that, that was just in the cards for them, and that doesn't look to be the case. Marcel Reed didn't play that great. DJ Lagway showed promise there for Florida, but A&M has gone and won these games at home that they need to. They still got to play LSU at home. They got to play Missouri at home. They got to play Texas, no, on the road. LSU, Missouri, and Texas all on the road. And I think if you win just one of them, you're going to make the playoff at 10-2. Right now, they're probably in the driver's seat to win the SEC. I don't necessarily know if I buy that, but right now they feel like a very comfortable playoff team. I'm good with that. At five, Ole Miss played with its food this week. Nearly lost at home to Washington State. Maybe overlooked the Cougs in lieu of game day being in Athens for when they got to go play Georgia between the hedges. That game's going to be great. Whoever wins that game, like that, basically means it effectively punches your ticket to the playoff between Ole Miss and Georgia. I still think both ultimately get there, but if you win that game, it's going to be hard to say like it's going to be hard to see Ole Miss losing twice or losing 3 times getting out, and then Georgia losing 2 more times effectively. 6 through 10. Um, I'm good with Alabama at 6. Texas Tech at 7's a little high for my taste. And I'm okay with Oregon, Georgia, LSU kind of rounding out the top 10. Those feel like the right sort of cluster of teams. Again, these are mostly the best one-loss teams in the country. Um, you know, LSU, Georgia, and Oregon losing by a score. Alabama not looking the part versus Florida State. That may come back to haunt them, but honestly, getting wins over Georgia, getting wins over Vanderbilt, and getting wins over Missouri back to back to back. That team's cooking with gas. Texas Tech at 7 is a little bit rich for me, but like they're beating the teams that are on their schedule. Shout out to Joe McGuire's team for figuring that out. Can't really complain there. I think I trust Oregon and Georgia more so than I do with LSU because Brian Kelly. And I think with Georgia, like Kirby Smart's fantastic. Dan Lanning's really good. Will Stein kind of played with his food a bit versus Indiana. Glenn Schumann's awful. Mike Bobo's not much better, so he's just really bad. Blake Baker's really carrying the LSU team. At 11 through 15, these are all playoff caliber teams. And again, like I don't necessarily know if I have any of them in my 12-team playoff bracket for this week, but they're all in and around it for the time being. Um, and I think like look, Georgia Tech being undefeated and BYU being undefeated, that matters. Again, I don't know who they've really played up to this point. Georgia Tech's best wins over what? Clemson and Colorado. Those aren't good. Tennessee, you have that one loss to Georgia, but you got to start getting some pelts on the wall. You always have a hard time with Arkansas. And then Notre Dame, after you starting out 0-2 with losses to Miami and Texas A&M, you looking really good. I got to say this with Oklahoma, I just don't see it. I just don't see them as a playoff team. They looked really bad versus Texas. Let's see, like looking at Oklahoma's schedule, man, like look at this. Like it gets okay, you got South Carolina next week on the road in Columbia. That's not easy. Oh, and then every other team you play the rest of the way is ranked. Home versus Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at Alabama, home versus Missouri and then home versus LSU. Like you're gonna lose two of those games. I don't know who to whom, but it's probably gonna happen. I would say if I had to pick two losses they're gonna have, it's probably gonna be Ole Miss and Alabama. But I think with the other teams out there, even South Carolina, I think you could conceivably get them. So again, it's been a cute story, but again, I don't think Oklahoma ever really belonged. 16 through 20. Mizzou looked pretty good. I mean, I think that they threw the ball or returned the ball over a bit too much versus Alabama, but I think this is a team that could definitely win 10 games. 5-1. If they go 5-1 in the second half with their navigable schedule, they could do it. Vanderbilt, similar way, that might be closer to a 9-3 team, but they're still really good. Virginia at 18. I mean, I'll probably touch on them here a little bit in a later segment here, but they're not going away quietly. And I think when you're seeing a lot of coaches that have been hired relatively recently, I think this is year 4 or 5 for Tony Elliott. At that point, like with the lack of success he'd had prior to the season, you're like, how much longer is he going to be here? But he's really the team's really bought in. Chandler Morris has been playing fantastic quarterback for him. The Who's look legit. I don't know if they'll necessarily get to Charlotte because Miami and Georgia Tech still haven't lost yet, but UVA is looking really good. South Florida might win the South Florida might win the they might win the group of five. And again, I may make a pivot here, in the on the fly at some point here, but yeah, the Bulls look really good. Alex Galesh looks like he's going to be a head coach somewhere else next year. I don't know if he's going to go to Penn State, but like he's kind of got Power Four vibes coming out of him. USC at 5-1. I'll give Lincoln Riley's team credit. They beat Michigan. That's a game that they don't typically win. You lost to Illinois, which is a game where I kind of felt you came up soft, but like, look, if you win 10 games and you beat Notre Dame, like you're going to be a playoff team because I think the Big Ten could get four in. They're not going to get five, but they'll probably get three. And it really comes down to like how much do we really trust USC? I'm a little dubious about them, but I don't think you can't really ding them too badly for what they did in the first half of their season. So I'm pretty good with what the Trojans did. And looking at the guys that are like coming up here to round out the top 25, Texas got a big win over Oklahoma. They're still technically in it, but again, this you have to win out. You can't lose at Georgia. You can't lose, at home to Texas A&M. You beat the Oklahoma game, that's huge, but you've already lost to Florida. You've already lost to Ohio State. Again, Texas feels like they might be able to do it, but like this is a lot of pressure. And I do think they're going to probably suffer another loss or two this season. This might be an 8-4 team. But I will say, though, getting that win in Red River and really putting Oklahoma's season in the blender, that's great for them. Arch Manning played confident, looked so much better than he did a week ago versus Florida. Very impressed with him. Still really high in Memphis. I might take them over South Florida to win the group of five at this time just because they're undefeated. But Ryan Silverfield is, again, a head coach that I feel like might be destined for bigger and better things than just coaching in the American. Keep your eye there on Memphis. And then Utah, Cincinnati, Nebraska. None of them are ranked after this past week. They're all they're all 5-1. I think Nebraska's got the head-to-head over Cincinnati, which I think probably makes Nebraska a little mad because they beat them 2017. Utah got its clock cleaned by what was it? Utah got its clock cleaned by Texas Tech. And then what Nebraska's losses to Michigan. So maybe that's how they did it. I think they kind of went by like who's got the worst loss. I mean, Utah beat Arizona State. That's a pretty good win. Cincinnati beat Iowa State. That's a decent win. Nebraska beat Cincinnati. So maybe Nebraska has the best win of those teams. But it's good to see them in the top 25. I guess rounding out the top 25, you got Illinois, or just outside Illinois, Michigan, Washington, UNLV, Navy, Mississippi State, Tulane, San Diego State. UNLV and Navy are still undefeated, so they're 6-0. We'll touch on them a little bit later. Washington's a very sneaky 5-1. Don't trust Illinois. Don't trust Michigan. I've touched on that. San Diego State, I think, is 5-1. They're interesting. They got that big road win. They got that big win over Cal. I don't know about Tulane. Again, they got crushed by Ole Miss, but that happens. Mississippi State. Again, the fact that they're still receiving votes at this stage of the season just kind of shows how good of a head coach Jeff Levy is. So yeah, that's what I got there for Stephen B. Swift's second take. Let's move on to our third topic with playoffs. You kidding me? My 12 team playoff bracket for this entering week 8 after week 7 plus my first four out. So probably get through this relatively quickly because Cody's not here to debate this with me. So I'm gonna go with my first four teams who are getting buys. Number one, I've got Miami. Number two, Ohio State. Number three, Indiana. Number four, Texas A&M. Feel really good about those teams getting buys. I think that they've all earned it. They're all what 6-0 at this point on the season. Maybe Miami's 5-0. I can't really recall, but like they've been impressive. And I think like these are teams that are playing with the type of discipline and togetherness that you would expect to see out of a playoff team. No, I'll explain why I picked this order. I think Miami just they've got the best pass rush in football with Mesidor and Ruben Vane. I've seen Mesidor's name wrong. I don't know. It's been a long weekend. Carson Beck's playing with a lot of confidence. I think that Mario Cristobal's got a really good staff there with Shannon Dawson as his OC and Corey Heatherman as his DC. They may or may not get challenged by anybody in the ACC. I will say though, Georgia Tech's kind of had Miami's number in recent years, so I'd be wary of that game. It would be like this way. It'll be more of a disappointment than anything if Miami did not make the playoff versus anything. And I think of these four teams up here, they're the one I feel the most confident about winning their respective conference, and that's why I've got them at one. The reason I've got Ohio State at two, behind Miami, is I don't know if they had the most impressive wins. I think they beat the tar out of Illinois this past week, which is good. But again, the Penn State win's not going to really matter. They don't play Indiana this year. I think you play Oregon at some point. You beat Texas, which I think looks pretty good now. Um, Julian Sayin started to figure out a quarterback. Remains to be seen about what Brian Hartline's going to do as OC. Matt Patricia knows what he's doing as DC. Buckeyes are a team that, are certainly capable of repeating. Not saying that they will, but like when I do, we are doing a simulation with Cody. Ohio State's a team that we're always like, we always think that can pretty much win it from wherever they're ranked. So I think they're two this week for me right now. Indiana at three. I think Indiana has probably been the most impressive team in some ways, but again, I think that there's more talent there in Coral Gables and Columbus than in Bloomington. So that's why I've got the Hoosiers at three. Texas A&M at four, again, undefeated. They've got a couple of big wins. You beat Notre Dame, who's really turned it on since you beat them. They're really playing very hard for Mike Elko, but again, I think they come up last of those four teams at quarterback with Marcel Reed. I'll take Carson Beck over Marcel Reed. I'll take Fernando Mendoza over Marcel Reed. And honestly, I'll take Julian Sain at Ohio State over Marcel Reed at Texas A&M. Aggies look really good. I think they're well coached. I think this is a team that like I'd be kind of shocked at this point if they fell apart in the second half. Like for them to go 500 in the second, like let me put this way, they're 6-0. If they go 3-3 down the stretch, granted it's going to be mostly SEC games, like they will play their way out. Like they deserve to get a lot of criticism. They've set themselves up for such a tremendous success at this point. So that's what I've got for my buys right now. At number five, I've got Alabama. I know the Florida State loss is looking worse and worse by the week. They want to get rid of Mike Norvell. Maybe he's potentially out there too. That's another coach I forgot to mention. Yeah, it's not looking very hot there for him in Tallahassee. Can't win league games. But I think Ty Simpson's playing like one of the best quarterbacks in college football right now. Having Ryan Grubb calling plays, it's really taking his game up a notch. They're legit. They're absolutely legit. I just kind of wonder though with Alabama, like, could they slip up again? You beat Georgia, where Georgia kind of beat themselves more than you beat them. You still got to play Tennessee. You beat Mizzou, but like just this run that they're on right now of beating Georgia, Vandy, Mizzou in a row, that's as good as it gets right now. Really impressed with Alabama. At six, I have Oregon. This was a team that I had like two or number one, kind of oscillating with them in Miami. Valued them more than Ohio State. But again, I fell for it. I think fell for it. I did it again. For as cool as the uniforms are, for as much as like we like Dan Lanning, for as fun as they can be, Oregon's just soft. They always are. And I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to lose to Georgia if they were to play, although they got shut out 70-0 when they played 3 years ago. I just kind of feel that this team does not have the backbone to really hold itself versus a fellow Goliath when it really counts. And maybe this loss to Indiana will galvanize them, and maybe they'll win their first national title in program history. But I kind of feel like they counted their chickens before they hatched here. And where it stands right now, I don't have them getting to Indianapolis. Maybe that works in their favor. Maybe they run the gauntlet like Ohio State did a year ago at 10-2. But I don't want to ding them too badly because you lost to like a really good team there in Indiana. But like we did that to Georgia, didn't we? So there shouldn't be that much level of separation between them. But there is one. I've got Ole Miss at 7. I've got Ole Miss at 7 strictly because they're undefeated. Don't know if they've really beaten anybody worth a damn outside of maybe LSU at this point. Tulane's okay. Again, I think not playing anybody of note in the non-conference of a Power Four distinction is going to hurt them in the end. And even if they lose to Georgia, I still think they're a playoff caliber team. But like, I don't know if Lane Kiffin's really built to be a front runner. Georgia's won a couple of games where it does not has not played well, and I think there's only been a handful of times where they have played well, they've won. So, you know, give Ole Miss credit for not falling apart versus Washington State, but like very lucky to win that game. And they'll be I don't know if they'll be lucky to win between the hedges, but like they're gonna have to play much better to win that game. Then Georgia just comes in at 8. They're 5-1. They've won 2 games they probably should have lost on the road at Tennessee and at Auburn. You know, you lose at home to Alabama, which you always lose to Alabama unless you're playing them in Indianapolis for national championship. You got other wins over Marshall, Austin Peay, and Kentucky. Georgia's got some horrible coordinators. But at the end of the day, they've got Kirby Smart as head coach, and they've got Gunnar Stockton at quarterback. And I think with that, when you have those two positions figured out, you can do a lot of things here. Also, I think Georgia's comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that this team knows that it's maybe at a not as talented as it used to be, but I think that like in these moments where other teams get uncomfortable, they're kind of okay with it. And I think that will serve them here. And again, all they really got to do is hold serve. And they got to basically, win one of two between Ole Miss next weekend or versus Texas. Because I think you'll beat Florida. You may be able to beat Mississippi State in the road. You'll beat Charlotte. And then it may come down to a playoff berth, for them in Atlanta versus Georgia Tech. But it'll be interesting there. Again, Georgia's 8 for me. They could potentially be higher, but I think right now they feel like a playoff team. At 9, I've got Texas Tech, the best team in the Big 12 right now. They're 6-0, playing very hard for Joe McGuire. I'm eager to see what happens when they get punched in the face. They're going to lose a game this year. I don't think that they're going to enter the playoff undefeated. If they do, they're going to be overseeded and they're going to lose it right away. I think that they can make the playoff with one loss, maybe not two, but they got to win their league. I mean, I said things about Texas Tech where like I feel like they're the best team in the Big 12 right now, but again, this is a program that has been defined as finesse forever. I don't necessarily trust them, but maybe all the pieces are coming together for Joe McGuire, and we have to respect that. At number 10, I've got LSU. I don't like the last 3 teams I've got in here. Uh, LSU is kind of here because kind of by default. I think there's some other teams that like are behind them that I don't necessarily trust. I like to see Garrett Nussmeier in the playoffs, says me now. I don't know if I really want to. I think it mostly comes down to Blake Baker's defense, and I think that they've got the athletes to compete in the playoff, and I think they can win a game kind of wherever they're seated. But I don't know if they'll necessarily win it because of who the guy is at the helm of head coach. At 11, I've got Tennessee. Josh Heupel, it's the same sort of thing. Maybe Aguilar got hurt. Maybe that dings them down the line, but their only loss is at home in overtime to Georgia. That happens. They don't beat Georgia, just like Auburn doesn't beat Georgia, just like Georgia doesn't beat Alabama. I think Josh Heupel's a hell of a coach. Got a fantastic defensive coordinator there at Tim Banks. We've seen one of his disciples, the original Heupel disciple, and Alex Galesh having a fantastic time in South Florida. Feel pretty good about that. And then at 12, honestly, I'm pivoting on the fly. I'm going to go with South Florida here. I think a little more battle tested than Memphis. And I think Alex Kolesh, push comes to shove, is going to get a head coaching job in the Power Four sooner than Ryan Silverfield. And I think Byron Brown, I think, is just better answer than anybody that Memphis has right now. But Memphis was the first team to go bowling, so I'll give them credit there. So that leads me to our first round matchups. Your 5-12, Alabama hosting Memphis. Got to play for some ribs, man. Or play for some trophy. 6-11, Oregon hosting Tennessee. That's pretty good. I'd like Oregon there. You're 7-10. It's a rematch of Magnolia at in Oxford. And then you're 8-9, Georgia hosting Texas Tech between the hedges. Certainly about that. My first four out are my first four out right now are Georgia Tech, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and BYU. Georgia Tech and Notre Dame, no, Georgia Tech and BYU are undefeated, but in the ACC and in the Big 12, waiting to see what happens when they play somebody of substance. Maybe they both make the playoff, but like maybe neither does. Still keep an eye on them. I think that they've really earned their rankings and they've been have been fun teams to kind of follow along with from a national perspective up to this point. Don't trust Oklahoma at all at 14, but I can't knock them that far down. Again, I had them seeded 10th, and everybody else had them seeded in the top five, but that they're absolutely fraudulent up there. And then Notre Dame, I've kind of come along with Cody. I think I needed Mizzou to kind of pull back a little bit for Notre Dame to rise up. Why does Marcus Freeman's team always lose like in the first 2 weeks of the season? It's ridiculous. Maybe he learned that from Brian Kelly. So that's what I got here for playoffs. You kidding me? So let's move on to our fourth topic here today with some 4 for 4, definitely maybe. What team in each Power Four league definitely maybe might be good? As I mentioned this before, the ACC, it's Virginia. And I think anytime Virginia is good, it comes down to coaching more so than anything else. George Welsh was really good when I was little. He was holding his own in the 90s for UVA. Really kind of struggled there, under Mike London, and they had some run there under Bronco Mendenhall. It took a while, but now like it started to happen with Tony Elliott. And again, I don't necessarily know like how good the Who's are, but they're in a lot better of a spot than most of the teams in their conference. This is a team we kind of entered the season like, I really want to see Tony Elliott get to a bowl game. Well, he's one game away from doing that. I mean, outside of Miami and Georgia Tech, like how many other teams in the ACC would you definitively take over Virginia right now, vibes wise? I'll wait because I don't think there is one. I really don't. I mean, so yeah, Virginia is definitely fits the bill here. I don't know if they'll get to Charlotte. I don't know if they're going to make the playoff. I don't know any of the other stuff, but right now they feel like they've got some staying power there in the top 25, and good for them. Looking at the Big Ten, can't believe I'm gonna say it's USC. I think the win they had over Michigan, very big. The loss to Illinois, not good, but not the worst thing in the world. I think it really comes down to how they look versus Notre Dame in the end. And like I said, if the Big Ten's going to get 4 teams into the playoff, it's probably going to be USC, maybe more so than Nebraska, to be honest with you. I think they do play later on. I don't know about Washington either. I think Washington's kind of hanging around. I don't know if necessarily know if I trust them as much. But with USC, we know what Lincoln Riley is about as head coach. We know what Jade Maeva is doing at quarterback. They're kind of figuring it out. Again, if they make the playoff, they're going to lose immediately. That's just kind of what the nature of it all is. But like, it's nice to see somebody is taking up the void being vacated by Penn State. Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana are all holding their own. Indiana surprisingly holding its own year over year. We didn't see that happening. USC might be making a turn here. But again, I don't necessarily know if they're going to be a playoff team. Again, like they're 5-1. They're ranked inside the top 25. Never really a thought for me to put them in my first four out, but I see what they're doing and I respect it. In a way, I kind of view what USC is doing is what I thought Indiana would be doing this year and what Illinois was doing for a while. So maybe this fourth spot in the Big Ten is just going to be a revolving chair. But right now, I think that a team like USC deserves to be there. Looking at the Big 12, BYU. And again, like I think with the Cougars, it just kind of goes to show how good of a head coach Kalani Sitake is. I remember like entering last year, I thought that team was going to go 4-8. I mean, They almost made the playoff. They almost got to Arlington. And right now, I think it's like them and Texas Tech is probably the most likely matchup. Neither's lost. Being able to win that game over Arizona in overtime, that's quite impressive. And look, this is what I've always said about BYU. Just get them in a Power Four league, Power Five league at the time, like, and they're going to be fine. I'm like, this is Mormon Notre Dame. Really proud of athletics. Everybody plays their all. They've got some sort of like when Wisconsin's good, there's a level of togetherness that BYU football plays with that always impresses me. They always packed LaVell Edwards Stadium to the brim. They party in their own unique way. But I think more importantly with BYU, just to lose Jake Retzlaff and to basically not skip a beat there with Bear Bachmeier quarterback. Again, this comes down to coaching, and I think more importantly, BYU has a potential to be a powerhouse in the Big 12. Like back in the day, we used to say, like, what's the only like G5 team to ever win a national title? That was 84 BYU. When they're like the WAC or whatever it was back then, with LaVell Edwards as their iconic head coach. Sataki's doing things that I didn't even think he's doing things that Bronco Mendenhall, I thought Bronco Mendenhall did there in Provo, but apparently Sataki is doing it a little bit more. So I've been very, very impressed with the Cougars there in the Big 12. And then for the SEC, I still think it's Missouri. And even though they lost on the road, they lost at home to Alabama, it's by three. That's a game that Missouri would always lose. I saw that they're renovating their stadium, and I saw this too. I wish Cody was here. I would have talked to him about this. There was an offensive play with Alabama, and it was just like, is Katie Proctor taking signs from the stadium? Like over there was like a backhoe, so that's where he ran the ball. But if if Bo Pribula would have not turned the ball over as much and stagnated in the middle part of the game, I think Mizzou could have won that game. And again, is Mizzou a playoff team? Probably not. But I had them pegged to win 9 games this year. I thought the schedule was favorable. They were beating up on a lot of tomato cans. But again, along with Ole Miss and along with Tennessee, and I'm blanking on the other team is I never remember like bottom quarter easiest SEC schedules, whereas Oklahoma, Florida, Vanderbilt, and Texas have the 4 hardest. So I don't know who would occupy that other level there. But with Missouri, you're kind of wondering if Eli Drinkwitz is like this is it for him. Like maybe he's gonna leave for a bigger job. Arkansas is open. He's from there. Does he flip sides and battle line? Um, I think he could work in Florida potentially if they move on from Billy Napier. But honestly, I think Mizzou's a better job than that. The big one to watch is Auburn. Because if Auburn moves on from Hugh Freeze, they go get him and it becomes like what it was under Gus Malzahn. Because again, he was on Gene Chiswick's staff there as an assistant under Malzahn on the offensive side of the ball. Fellow Arkansas guy. I think that'd be very, very, very interesting. So yeah, good with all the teams that I have here for definitely maybe. And again, like when I did last time I did this, I had a very hard time finding a team in the Big Ten. I think I ultimately decided on Illinois, but like these teams are giving off the vibes that what this honor dictates. Probably not a playoff team, but you're pretty good, and we think you're good. And probably a team like after this year, we look at them next year, it's like, yeah, I'm gonna play them in the playoff field. We talk about it all off season long, but yeah, congratulations to Virginia, USC, BYU, and Missouri for making that distinction right now. So let's move on to our penultimate topic with this or that. I'm gonna do spin. I'm gonna spin the wheel, and I'm gonna pick. Just basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do 12 spins, group them into 6 pairs, and with each pair, I'm gonna say which team do I like the vibes more of. So let's start. This is totally random. So this is great. The first team here we have our Fresno State, and they're going to be going up against Central Michigan. Did not have a clue about this. So I really don't know much about what they're doing this season. So this is good because we're starting to do pouring out and bowling here for a while there. Central Michigan, they are 3-3, 1-1 on the season under their new head coach, Matt Drinkle. And in the Mountain West, Fresno State is 5-2, 2-1 in conference play. They're just off the pace of, you know, UNLV, San Diego State, Boise State. And again, here's what I'm saying. Like, Hawaii is also 5-2, so give the Rainbow Warriors their credit there too. Again, I think I'm gonna go with Fresno State here because they're living up to the hype that we thought. Like, look, this is a program that like is a top tier team in the Mountain West, or the Pac-12, whatever they go to it. Like, as long as they're in that same vicinity as like Fresno State and other and UNLV now, like you're good. You're right where you need to be. So we'll see what happens there in the MAC. Things get weird, wacky, and wonderful in that conference, but right now I think Fresno State's certainly held its end of the bargain a little bit more. All right, let's do the next one. Let's hopefully get some Power Four teams here. um, Next one up is going to be Kent State. What if I get all power? What if I get all G5 teams here? Kent State versus Wake Forest. I think Kent State got a win, so that's pretty good for them. Kent State is 2-4 this year. Got twice as many wins with their interim head coach than they ever did under Kenny Burns. I think Wake Forest is doing a little bit better right now. What's Wake's record? I think they've got 3 or 4 wins, maybe. But yeah, Wake Forest is 3-2, 1-2 in conference play, achieving a little bit better than like two of the worst teams in Division One historically. I'm gonna go with Wake here because you have Jake Dickert as head coach. Devon Claiborne's a fantastic running back. The ACC is a lot of competitive. And there's teams out there that you can beat. And I think Wake Forest feel like they're much more likely to make a bowl game than Kent State at this point. Kent State's got to win 4 of its final 6 games, whereas Wake Forest just needs to win 3 of its final 7. I'm gonna go with Wake there. All right, let's move on to our third spin here. Please get some. I had a good one with Cody last time. This is not doing so hot. Um, South Florida. All right, we got a good one here. South Florida versus UTSA. South Florida UTSA. Oh, they're both in the American right now. South Florida, 100%. For as much as we love Jeff Traylor, he's a prodigy after all. South Florida actually has a chance to win the Group of Five and make the playoff, win the American and that and stuff like that. South Florida's got a big win over Florida. You lose to Miami, but everybody's lost to Miami. Who cares? The Bulls, they're charging on up here. Don't really have to spend a whole hell of a lot of time on that. So let's do our fourth spin here. All right, give me some big ones. South Carolina going up against Virginia Tech. You know what? I saw this game head on. I saw this game at Mercedes-Benz Stadium with my boss, Michael Collins, during Labor Day weekend. Vibes for both schools, not great. South Carolina still has the Norris Sellers, but they fired their offensive line coach. Mike Shula is a terrible offensive coordinator. The Hokies have won some games there under Philip Montgomery, but again, you have Sellers, but he might be gone. I don't think the vibes are particularly great. Just because I saw that game in person, I'm gonna go with South Carolina. All right, fifth spin. Let's see what we got here. Liberty. I think they might suck. Let's see who they're going to be compared to. Liberty versus Notre Dame. Notre Dame 100%. Kind of crazy that Liberty would have made the playoff a couple of years ago, winning Conference USA. They've really fallen on hard times there under Jimmy Chadwell. I'm trying to think what are they in CUSA right now? Liberty Liberty is 2-4. They are very fortunate that they play in the same league as Middle Tennessee, UTEP, and Sam Houston. Just a bunch of steaming piles of crap. Kennesaw State's 4-2. Didn't see that happening. And Western Kentucky's 5-1. Did see that happening. So yeah, definitely without question, gonna go with Notre Dame. Last one. Give me a good one, please. Give me a good one, please. All right. Hawaii versus Arizona State. You know what? That is a good one. Arizona State is 4-2. They just suffered their second loss of the season. You've lost to Mississippi State, you lost to Utah, you lost to teams that are like ranked or near enough. They need to win out to basically achieve what they did a year ago, but Arizona State's the best team in the Big 12. It's not ranked right now. And then with Hawaii, if you go over to what they're doing there in the Mountain West, they're 5-2. And I'm trying to think who they beat. So, you beat Stanford. You lost to Arizona and you lost to Fresno. Okay. But you have conference wins there over Air Force and Utah State. The problem is you got to play San Diego State and UNLV later on, and that's not going to be good. But I think the good news is you need one more win, and you have winnable ones potentially there, over San Jose State, over Colorado State, over Wyoming. I'm still going to take Arizona State because they can technically make the playoff, whereas I don't think Hawaii can. So, yeah. I deserve this for me taking an easy segment here while Cody's not here and not doing any prep, but like I wish he was here because we get better. We get better ones with this or that or TIN spin. I don't know. This or that, yeah. It's a fun thing to do on a Monday after a Sunday show or after Saturday night show on Sunday for Monday. You got to use your brain and just kind of talk about vibes. And yeah, there are some good ones there, but I want some better teams. But I think we end on a good note there with Arizona State having better vibes than Hawaii, even if the Sun Devils just lost. So let's move on to our last topic of the day with pour one out, and was episode 217 of False Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter. We got to pour one out for Oregon State. Follow my absent. They're the first team to go 0-7. Cody Williams at the just fired one of their own. You follow the show at CFP False Start. It was quietly subscribe, review, really, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Anywhere there's no longer building a belief. Give us a 5-star review. We only say Bowlin 4 times, not 5 times. But still give us a 5-star review anyway. Maybe all those other teams helps the show grow. Maybe they were right for this is unbelievable. We almost had to do breaking news. I literally hit record, and then 30 seconds ago they were like a ranked caliber team in the Pac-12. They had DJU playing. Jonathan Smith keep coming. Keep them hot. We almost beat Washington. Thanks for listening. We were looking good. And this is False Start. Was episode 217. I don't know where they go for follow me. I don't know John Buhler on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. Really absent-minded, absent good quarterback in the league. Cody Williams at the Sizzle 20. Imagine the show at CFP False Start. Like, Texas, listen, subscribe, review on Apple. What a career arc that guy's had. YouTube. Anywhere there's podcasts, give us a 5-star review. We only say Bowlin 4 times, not 5 times. Still give us a 5-star review anyway. Really helps the show grow. This for myself. This is unbelievable. We almost had to do breaking news, but I literally hit record in 30 seconds because you know show next time. So Memphis Tigers, they're 6-0. They were the first team last week to go. Once again, thanks for listening. And this is the BYU Cougars are 6-0. Was episode 217 under Klein's talking with Barry Bockermeyer, John Buhler on Twitter, or the X at Buhler118. Minded Georgia Tech 6-0. Cody Williams looking like almost a toast of the show behind Miami. Start. Yellow Jackets are bowling, Spotify. The Indiana Hoosiers anywhere there's now the number 3 team. Give us a 5-star review. They are only say Bowlin 4 times, not 5 times. Still give us a 5-star review anyway. Name it shit are also undefeated. Shout out to Blake Horvath. This is unbelievable. We almost had to break from way out there. I literally hit record and then 30 seconds. Then the Stones for Brian Newberry to go for 2 to beat Temple in a game that you could have lost to conference play. Keep coming. That's what Navy's all about because Navy is going. Thanks for listening. And this is False Starts. Was episode 217. Like clockwork, there. Follow me, John Buhler on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. The Ole Miss Rebels play with their food versus Washington State. Regardless, they are start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. Texas A&M Aggies did not mess up versus Florida, and therefore give us a 5-star review anyway. Really helps the show grow. Texas Tech looks like the almost had to do break Big 12. So like 4 times literally hit record in 30 seconds and bowling. And the UNLV Rebels have yet to lose a game under Dan Mullen. Once again, with the powers of Anthony Colandrea, they are false starts. Was episode 217. God, that's so stupid. I can't believe I decided to bring John Buhler on Twitter or the X. You know why? 118. Because this was episode 217 of False Start. You can follow me, John Buhler, on Twitter or the X at Buhler118. You can follow my absent co-host, Cody Williams, at the Sizzle 20. Do follow the show at CFP False Start. Like, rate, listen, subscribe, review on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere there's podcasts. Give us a 5-star review. We only say Bowlin 4 times, not 5 times, but still give us a 5-star review anyway. Really helps the show grow. This is unbelievable. We almost had to do breaking news here. I literally hit record, and then 30 seconds and Trent Dilfer got fired. Keep them coming, keep them hot. Once again, thanks for listening. And this is False Start.